Or, you could take 30 seconds and go click and book the fucking thing.
Let's not jump to conclusions here. I don't want to book it and then cancel it.
Wait, why?
You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller.
Hello and welcome to episode 312 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I'm Stephen Seagraves, joined by the usual cast of characters, Seth Miller, Fosma Moon. Gentlemen, how are you?
Great. How are you?
You're doing great. That's good to hear. I was getting worried.
Yeah, I am not.
Where are you, Seth, exactly?
Right. I am in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, which is just across the river from Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. I did not get to see the Liberty Bell. I did get to see 30th Street Station. I was working in King of Prussia today, so I got to see the shopping mall. I'm still trying to figure out if there's anything else in King of Prussia besides the shopping mall and the small office building I was in that was not in the shopping mall. But, obviously there's a couple things because, I had to drive like a mile between the two. But still, the mall is insanely large. And which is weird. I always knew of the King of Prussia Mall, and it's a big thing, but I had no idea just how big it was. So that was cool and disturbing, all at the same time. And I had to fly to get here.
Now, who did you fly?
I flew American. They are the only airline currently operating nonstops between Boston and Philadelphia.
Okay, so you did fly out of Boston. I'm surprised you didn't want to make it. You didn't want to do Manchester straight away.
It's easier to get to Boston, believe it or not, because I can take the bus. And it's actually a little harder. The bus used to come straight to my town, 5 minutes from my house. Now I have to drive to Portsmouth first. So it's 20 minutes of drive and then, whatever on the bus, or an hour of driving.
Yeah.
And at 6 a.m, making my wife drive an hour to drop me off at the airport and take the car home when her parents were in town seemed like a less than ideal situation.
Yeah, makes sense.
Also, usually, and also then, I have to get home also, and I guess I could have done in and one and out of the other, but it's just, usually, Boston has better schedules, better, easier, more, lots of things. So, that's what that's where we fly out of most of the time, even though both Portland, Maine, and Manchester, if we're driving ourselves, is slightly closer.
It's crazy that you're that close to Portland, Maine. I guess I just don't know that geography very well. So
Portland's not that far in from the border.
Yeah. So Seth, this isn't your only stop on this trip, right?
No, I've got it's a 4-day trip. I get home late Thursday. I've got 2 more flights and driving via New York City at one point. So it's quite an adventure.
And are you what's your plan for eating and stuff? Are you just going to order takeout?
Outdoors only.
Yeah.
Outdoor or takeout, but outdoors only. Actually had a lovely dinner this evening on a whim. I did call a friend of mine who lives in the area and managed to meet up with her after work for dinner. And I was just going to have a beer outside, and it was fine. And as I was getting ready to just have a drink, she's like, "Where are you going to eat in Mount Laurel? We're at a good restaurant now. Why don't you just eat here?" And I was like, "You know what? You're a very smart woman. Thank you." Actually had a really nice dinner. Other problem with Manchester, way fewer flights. The only flight was at 7:20 this morning. So
yeah.
That would not have worked considering I was on at 10 o'clock.
Now, is that one of American's routes that's still there? Like Manchester, Philly?
Yeah, they do fly. They fly in morning and an evening. So it's twice a day, which is way better than a lot of markets. I go via Buffalo, and flights to Buffalo are massively limited compared to what they were from either Philadelphia or from New York. And Buffalo to Boston for me to get home used to be a daily and a couple times daily route with JetBlue, and now it's 3 times a week.
Wow.
So I basically had to book my schedule of my entire trip around being able to catch that flight home.
What
interesting.
What was it like flying? What's your experience compared to Foz's? The
on the plane part was fine. I can't complain about any of it. I will, but I shouldn't. So let's start there, I guess. It was fine. Most of the people wore masks. The one jackass sitting in the terminal with a mask on his knee frustrated me, but I'm not surprised. There's another couple people with their masks around their chin talking to each other. There's the guy talking on his phone, so he pulled the mask down. I want to be your voice goes through it just fine. Put your mask back on. I will say that the people I saw in the terminal not wearing masks generally did so away from other people. So I guess that's good, but also still not really what you're supposed to do. having the mask on for 8 hours straight isn't ideal, but was basically my morning from the bus to the terminal to the plane to the rental car. And I actually did an interview from Philly, so I did a video where I stayed in the terminal a little extra time and had my mask on extra for that. So, again, not ideal, but is what it needs to be done to get it done. The flying was fine. My flight was empty. It was about 30 people on an A319. So, had a row to myself. It was easy. It was fine. I still didn't get the upgrade, though. I missed by one. So that was amusing. Admittedly, as an Advantage Gold. So, there's no reason I should have had the upgrade. Although American is blocking the one seat in first class closest to the jump seats.
Oh, okay.
And so without that blocked seat, I actually would have gotten the upgrade, which is amusing to me. I would not have taken it because it was an aisle seat with someone sitting next to me. Two things I didn't want. But anyway, it was all fine. But at the same time, I don't really think that this project needed anybody to travel right now, much less me. And I'm a little skeptical of is this what I would consider essential travel? Personally, no. I understand where they're coming from, and there are some deadlines they have to hit to get things done. And who do you trust to get it done if you don't do it yourself? So someone had to do it, and it fell to me as sort of low man, new guy on the project. But I don't love that I'm doing it at all. Yeah, and so that has clearly colored my view of the experience. Like I said, everything was fine except that I just don't feel like it needs to be happening. So,
yeah. Does it seem like most of the people you're traveling with or around were traveling for pleasure or leisure?
There was more business travel than I thought it would be, and I'm basing that on just what I think of what I'm seeing, at least on my flight. But the flight to Charlotte at the gate next door was full. And mine was, mostly empty. So I guess there's a little bit of a crapshoot. It was also weird to be on the plane and the flight attendants. I was the only person with the windows open on the morning flight. Everybody else had the windows closed and I guess was sleeping. And I probably should have been. I'm exhausted. But I had the windows open and was looking out, and the flight attendants came by and got in, sat down in the row in front of me because it was empty, and was looking out the windows hey, have we hit Atlantic City yet? And I happened to have Flight Radar open and was watching our progress, trying to figure out where we were. And I'm no, we're about 5 minutes away. And then we immediately banked to the right, and I was sitting in the F seat. So we were going to pass right over, and I was going to get to see it. And then all of a sudden I wasn't. And he's I was shit, he turned early, or it's going to be on the other side now. And of course the flight attendant walked over to the other side. It's and then suddenly shouted out, sir, come on over, here it is. It's we're on, not final, but well past the, we've collected all the trash, buckle up, and you can't go anywhere for the rest of the flight kind of phase of the trip. And he had me come over, and I walked across the aisle, hopped across and buckled in on the other side. But honestly, the last time I did that was in 2001. Late 2001 to see the crater. And I was sitting on the wrong side, and the flight attendant said, oh no, it's over here, and called me across. So kind of creepy in that sense, and sort of weird in the era and sort of level that made me think about. But I don't know. I have to do the work. I'm glad I'm getting paid. I don't particularly love that I'm doing it, though.
Yeah. Wasn't your first choice of things to do?
No, I
travel.
I'm being very responsible, doing my best. Had my meal outside with my friend where we both wore masks until we're sitting down and sort of were on the street facing vaguely away from each other to make sure that we were as safe as we could be and all those things. But I don't know. Does any of this really need to be happening? Should I even be here? Yeah. Kind of challenge. And hoping that we could actually solve the problems instead of just kicking the can down the road.
Agreed.
I'm not sure I'm helping.
Yeah, I get it. Well, stay safe. We've got some stories. We actually have, it's kind of follow up. It's more of a funny addition.
Funny up?
Yeah, it's a funny up. So Ben Rouse sent us a tweet. He subtweeted us from Fat3 Aviation, and the tweet is, apparently Thai Airways made 10 million baht a month from selling Thai donuts with taro jam desserts on the streets. It might be more than what they made before COVID. And to be fair, it's not far off, probably.
Well, they weren't really making much money pre-COVID. 10 million baht would be $300,000. 10,000,000. Yeah, $320,000 a month. Yeah, if they're making $320,000 a month in profit on donuts, that's pretty good.
And so
right? You do remember they had the little pop-up cafe that their catering group was running. They are trying to do other things while they can here.
So maybe they should just turn into Thai dining. I mean,
presumably this is all extra stuff that the catering company is doing while it's also filling the planes. Someone else covering the capex.
Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious.
It is hysterical, I think, right? Like, why is, Thai Airways doing any of this stuff, and why aren't they making any money at all? But
have we heard anything else about how they're doing as far as will they be just absorbed or,
I think we're still waiting to hear about the bankruptcy hearings and what the next steps are.
Okay, yeah. That's what I figured. United is trying to expand some service into Latin America again, starting in November, and then restarting San Francisco, Shanghai.
Nonstop. No longer going to have the Seoul stop. That one's actually the most surprising to me.
And so they were stopping in Seoul for what reason, you think?
Crew.
Okay. And is this going to be a passenger flight, or is this going to be still cargo? Okay.
No, it's passenger. They're taking a couple of their cargo-only flights and converting them to passenger service. I think Taipei and Seoul are also getting from cargo-only to passenger, if I remember correctly. I think I have that email. I can pull it up and check while we're talking. So it's... there's a couple things going on. The Seoul stop for Shanghai was because the U.S.-based crew didn't want to be subject to COVID testing on arrival, and if they tested positive, quarantined. Mm-hmm. And that actually happened with, I think it was British Airways last week, where one flight attendant tested positive and the entire crew was forced quarantined.
Oh, man.
So there's some interesting things there. There's a lot of talk. I think Virgin Atlantic announced today that they're going to start testing all of their crews heading into China before they board to try to make sure that, that sort of thing doesn't happen. Supposedly BA was also doing that, and so who the hell knows how this happened anyways. There's a lot of sort of weird, interesting stuff going on in those in the way that all this testing is happening, and where the breakdown isn't who's going to end up getting quarantined. So that one's pretty weird to me. But yeah, it's all happening. But one of the reasons, but if they didn't stay on the ground, they didn't have to get tested. So that's why they're doing the Seoul Shanghai turn. They could do that within their block time and not have to stay. So I don't know how they figured out to make the stop and have it the overnights anymore. But clearly they've got something figured out. Well,
that's what I was wondering, kind of they're starting San Francisco Taipei back up with passenger service. Taiwan is still not open, right? You have to 14-day quarantine even for transit passengers. So it's kind of crazy to me that they're opening it back up.
There's either enough people who are, residents returning anyways and dealing with it, or some other weird demand. But
yeah. Any other thoughts on that? I mean, Latin America, we've seen
that's the other half is it's increasing to 44% of last year's numbers, which, okay, good, up from 40% in October to 44% in November, so it's a nice incremental boost. It all seems to be dependent on the other countries, opening their borders, though. I feel like American is probably the best/worst at this because they've been publishing revised start dates for all these routes repeatedly on their internal sales agent portal. And every couple days/weeks, they update a bunch of additional ones to get redlined into what the new date is going to be. And listen, if the doors aren't open, that's what you got to do. You're not going to operate planes that aren't going to carry anybody. But it's super interesting. And I feel like I have to go back and check, but I feel like some of these they may have listed once or twice before, and then had to pull them from the schedule. So that's the other thing about all this schedule stuff is the China, I believe, will really happen, but the other stuff is a little bit of throw it out there and see what sticks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of interesting to me because it's what what was the Latin America destination? Was it Panama City, Panama?
Right, that's in the list, yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch, and I mean, some of them still have some restriction, but then there's other places where there's not a lot of restriction, but there's been some pretty significant outbreaks of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, Panama just reopened. We were talking about it. Panama is reopening mid-October. Did we talk about it in the last episode?
No, we didn't.
Okay, I think I got the email while that episode was happening then. PCR or antigen test, if I remember correctly. New service from Dulles to Key West.
Interesting.
Resuming service from San Francisco to Tampa and between Denver and Miami. Denver to Frankfurt, going 3x weekly. Houston, Frankfurt, going to 5x. And then you got Chicago to Delhi starting in December. Tickets are on sale now. San Francisco to Bangalore. New York to Johannesburg.
Just a bunch.
Bangalore starts in May. Joburg starts in March.
I'm a little amazed by some of the European, resumptions, but increases as well. I know they were running some of those flights because there was demand to repatriate people if need be, or people visiting loved ones who are sick or whatever. But to see the demand for Houston Frankfurt go up to 5 times weekly is kind of crazy.
Well, there are still a few places in Europe and onward from Frankfurt that people are allowed to connect, and you can, go to, and the connections are legit. So that might be part of it.
Yeah, like Croatia's just wide open, right?
Yeah, and Turkey is too, I think.
And then Serbia, which
So, but yeah, this is the announcement they confirmed. Taipei is going to go 3x weekly from San Francisco, and Seoul is going to go to 5x weekly as passenger flights, not cargo only. And actually, sort of interesting about that is all other airlines have sort of been trying to figure out where to get more cargo-only flights for United to be like, yeah, we're just going to start putting passengers back in cabins. Like, I don't know how many of them United was doing with cargo or with cargo in the seats, but clearly United didn't convert any of its planes to the COVID combi where it's all cargo. Right? If they did put cargo in the cabin, they didn't take seats out to do it.
Gotcha.
Is the distinction we've drawn. So,
Will they
Houston to Santiago, really? In Rio? 3 times a week each? Wow.
The question is, are they going to drop the LA Guam flight now?
That was a cargo flight, right?
Yes.
Probably not. I mean, you would drop that in favor of...
Well, a lot of that was going to China, right? So there was I think it was doing LA, Guam, Shanghai. So if they're adding San Francisco, Shanghai back, will they keep it?
This depends on how much cargo they have to move versus passengers, because you're going to bulk out at some point, right? Or wait out. I mean, I'm not sure what the limits are.
I mean, they've been running a 77W. When I flew to LA last week, it was 77W.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a fair point. Why, I guess, if that same cargo could have gone via Seoul, San Francisco, not LA, but...
Yeah, this is a question, right? Like, how are airlines, you think, choosing where they go back during all this first? Is it just based on, do you think, data they have on who's booking what? Or is there more to it, like, what's open, that kind of thing?
I think it's a little bit, I think it's a lot about what's open. It has to be, right? I mean, there's just too much, there's the historical data of where they think people want to book is crap. They obviously can do some data on what people are searching for, but even that is a little harder to tell. And there are some historical patterns of, like, people from the Midwest tend to go to West Florida and people from the Northeast go to East Florida and things like that. But who the hell knows anymore, right? I mean, at this point, it's literally, can we get anybody to show up?
Interesting stuff.
So, yeah. I don't know if you guys saw this, but tentatively, the 764 start coming back in December.
We were actually just talking about the 764s on the last episode because we didn't know where they were, what the plan was for them.
Newark, Amsterdam, December 1st, 764.
And Fonz, you are right. They were coming Shanghai, Guam, LA. I would imagine those keep flying. I don't think that goes away if they bring the nonstop to San Francisco. Because it's happening now when there's the one stop to San Francisco that could easily have carried the same or more cargo. So,
yeah, who knows?
Yeah, regarding the 764, I would say that putting too much faith in what's published for December in terms of equipment might be a mistake. For example, I'm pretty sure the 737 MAX is still showing in November, and that ain't going to happen.
Oh, have a little faith.
I listened to the press conference in which the director of the the administrator for the FAA said they are going to take the Joint Operations Evaluation Board report, and once it's finalized, put it out for comment. And putting something out for comment comes with at least a 30-day, if not a 45 or 60-day time frame for responses. And those have to be aggregated and processed.
I thought he took a ride on it. And
he did. And then he said, we're going to put it out for comment.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And also his ride was, not official. It was not part of the FAA's official review. It was just, for him as an aviator to get an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah. Totally. So American is parking a bunch of A321T frames.
737s?
Sorry, I'm listening to my dog lose his mind in the back. It just irritates me.
I want to fly on one of those. Since you got GE90s on a 321 frame?
That would be cool. Let's like riding on...
They scrape a little.
It's like riding on 20s.
Jack it up. Yeah, you'd have to jack it up on some rims or something.
Yeah.
Or it could be a 737-200.
Ooh. Yeah.
With GE90s?
No.
Boo. You're no fun, Foz. You get the pub seating, though, right? If it's a 732, we go Southwest style.
Yeah, mm-hmm. But you would only need one engine if it was a GE90. You wouldn't need two.
And a lot of rudder.
So they're parking a bunch of these 321Ts, which are the three class 321s that they use on their premium transcon routes, right?
So it would seem.
Yeah, they're currently running like 5 flights, and I think 5 flights on JFK LA and 2 or 3 flights JFK San Francisco. And it looks like JFK LA is going to go down to 2 flights, and San Francisco is going to go to 1 flight. The San Francisco flight maintains the 321, but the LA flight's get a 772.
Yeah, is that an upgrade or a downgrade, you think?
Well, there's no first,
Yeah.
right? The 772s don't have first, so they lose first. Definitely a lot more business class seats and more coach seats. But it is
even with only 2 segments.
Yeah, going from even with just 2 flights. But I mean, it's interesting because you don't see Delta reducing their flights, and you don't see JetBlue reducing their flights between the 2 cities.
Yeah, Munich, Amsterdam, Milan, and are the 3 cities that'll get it. And one of them is going to do a San Juan turn, and the other 2 come from Houston. Foz and Stephen, but for the 764s is what's currently filed.
Interesting.
So
for the 321Ts though, like for people flying, do you think this is like has to do with first class, with potential, movie people going back and forth between New York and LA?
There's no high end demand. New York has officially is a quarantine rule for LA arrivals. I mean, who the hell knows if anyone's following it? But like the business people are not going to purposely go out of their way to be like, corporate managed travel isn't going to say like, that rule shouldn't apply to our people. We'll just go ahead and book whatever we want. So yeah, the premium demand, whether it's bankers or studios or whatever, has to be very close to nothing at this point. There's some challenge in, reducing the frequencies and just giving up what little there was. But what that also makes me wonder is how much of this is tied to, are they moving cargo back and forth across the country and they need the bigger plane for palletized cargo or container cargo?
Well, I mean, they're definitely not filling their existing flights because you can pretty much find saver space on any of the flights in business and often first.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the United flights are all full. Delta seems to be pretty full. And from what I've seen, the JetBlue flights are pretty full as well. So the question comes up, why are the AA flights empty?
Terminal 8? I don't know.
Yeah, it is weird, right? I mean, it's weird that they're not able to.
Because everybody heard Kirby say he wants to go back to JFK, so they're waiting.
That's going to be a little bit of a wait.
Details. There's still a quarantine rule anyways.
So, Seth, you put a story in here that I didn't even know this was a thing, but AirAsia Japan is dead?
Dead isn't Dornell dead.
So, I didn't realize AirAsia had a Japanese operation.
3 years. They launched operations in end of October 2017, so they made it just short of 3 years. This is the second time there has been an AirAsia Japan. The first time was a partnership with ANA, and it was when that collapsed, ANA rolled it into Peach, which is now part of Vanilla, or vice versa. I get my flavors mixed up there. Yeah, they had 3 planes. It was when I flew them actually like a couple weeks after they launched. By coincidence, I happened to be in Japan because it was right when Delta got its 350. So I did that inaugural from Detroit to Haneda, or Detroit to Narita, and then, or Haneda, whatever, and then did a bunch of flying around and then came home. But yeah, I grabbed that while I was there. It was a standard AirAsia A320 with a standard sort of AirAsia experience. They based themselves at Nagoya and had, by the time they closed down now, 4 routes. One was Taipei, which has not operated since March. The others were Sendai, New Chitos, and something else I'm blanking on now. And they suspended all of them from like March through August, and then they restarted in August, but no one was buying tickets, and they don't know when anybody is ever going to buy tickets again, and so they decided not to waste the money. It's only 3 planes and 4 routes, but it's to walk away from Japan again has got to be really hard. Like you got to wonder if they can really ever show up again and try to run another domestic operation there.
Is it? Do you think it's something like that they have to get permission to fly in Japan? Like, is it a subsidiary, I guess, or is it just like it's a separate company that they?
It's a separate company. Well, I mean, it's a subsidiary, but it's a separate AOC. So it's the local operation. In that context, like it is straight up an AirAsia. It is a Japanese airline with Japanese registrations on the planes and Japanese certifications and so. Fukuoka is the fourth destination. Sorry. It is a complete Japanese airline, and so getting that. So that's part of the problem, is getting a new airline started in Japan. Anywhere isn't easy, but it's not like they could just show up with existing everything. They had to sort of go through the whole process there. So and they're giving it up again.
Wow.
This is not going to be the last airline that goes bankrupt or shuts down operations. So it sucks. Particularly sucks for the people who had tickets, who are told you can either get a voucher for any other AirAsia service anywhere, or wait 16 weeks and maybe we'll have a refund available for you by then. Eventually you'll get your money back, we think, but we can't promise you when.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
They've been taking lessons from Air Canada?
Yeah, exactly.
Air Canada's like, you cannot actually have a refund back. Go piss off.
Piss off.
Quite literally at this point. But
any other stories you guys want to chat about?
Eastern Airlines wants to fly to Libya.
Ooh, a new hotspot.
No, that's me trolling a little bit. That's just it's a cargo flight from Rome. They're trying to move some oil equipment and ask the DOT for permission because there's a current rule out that says you're not allowed to fly in the Tripoli airspace here, the Tripoli flight information region. Is that what FAIR stands for?
Yes.
Whatever. Okay. So like anywhere where Libya controls air traffic control. And they sent this letter saying like, please let us do this anyways. And the DOT responded, you haven't actually explained what you want to do or why in a format that's acceptable to us. Please try again. Use big boy words this time. What's weird about it is, like, you'd think the person that they have, like, lawyers that deal with the FAA all the time and know what these regulatory requirements and filings mean. Usually when it's a request like that, or a rejection like that, it's a random person. The last one I saw was, like, just a random person being like, we would like to be able to take our child on an airplane. They're autistic or otherwise something, and can only fly in this type of car seat, not the other one. Thank you. And the FAA responds back with, like, you do not explain how this is good for the overall, like, national airspace system, which is the requirement, right? If you want an exemption, it can't just be because you think it's good for you. It has to be something that's valuable to the industry as a whole, or at least non-impact to the industry as a whole. And safety things especially is hard to prove that for. But to have a real company with the lawyers that should know what they're talking about file it that way is pretty awkward, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's their whole job, right?
Ooh, did we have Avianca?
No, but I saw that tweet and was like...
And this is the most ridiculous thing ever. Well, no, it's not the most ridiculous, but these days it qualifies as pretty ridiculous. Avianca decided to host a celebration that the Colombian airspace is resuming service and they're, flying again. And they brought a brass band on board. And so, as you can imagine, playing music through a mask doesn't really work. And that picture of the guys playing with masks with holes where their mouths should be. So like giant holes in the front of the mask. So that's not good. And they're playing an instrument that involves generating extra spit and blowing it out into the cabin.
Awesome.
And it's shit like that. And I'm like, most of us are trying to do this right. What is wrong with you fuckers? People. Yeah.
That's okay.
There's
We get
one.
one. We get one. Yeah.
Screw it, I'll flag their episode.
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of just, it's beyond tone deaf, really, to see the picture. Yeah.
I guess the amusing bit is when their competitor was like, yeah, we're actually way smarter than that, guys. Come fly with us instead. So that was amusing. That was better than anyway.
Man.
Yeah.
Funny.
I got nothing else.
Yeah, it's been a slow week, and you're tired. We are going to talk a little bit about inaugural travel that Foz and I are currently booking or have booked on the bonus side of the episode. So if you're a Patreon supporter, you'll hear that shortly. But to our listeners, you can find us on Twitter at @dotslines, morethotsmorelines.com. Leave us a comment, shoot us an email. We'd like to hear from you. If you have questions or things you want to hear about, let us know. Until next time, bye bye.
Take care.
See you later.